There is a Hanukkah legend that has been told for many years in Jewish communities. And it appears in different books and different versions that have been passed down and retold and retold. And like many stories, some historical details may not be 100% accurate. But it carries a truth that has endured. As a way of introduction, the legend takes place during the winter at Valley Forge, when George Washington's army endured hunger and cold and uncertainty during the Revolutionary War. And in the story that we're going to tell, there's a Jewish soldier named Israel Solomon who was at Valley Forge and had an encounter with General Washington. And it's a story that has become part of a Hanukkah legend and part of our country. So as legend has it, Israel Solomon was really cold at Valley Forge. Not just uncomfortable, cold to his bones. Cold in a way that seeps into your thoughts and makes everything just harder. The winter had settled in. The ground was frozen. And the tents, well, they offered very little shelter. Men slept wrapped in thin blankets, breathing clouds into the air that they couldn't even see because it was also so dark. And tomorrow was going to bring another day of waiting. Another day at Valley Forge, another day of hunger, another day of uncertainty. And Israel lay awake because he knew that it was the first night of Hanukkah. And he reached into his coat and he touched a small metal menorah that he had carried with him that has been part of his family for years. He had brought it from home, not knowing if he would ever use it. And he felt the matches, only 2. And he stayed still for a long moment because he knew that lighting candles in the camp was dangerous. Any light could draw attention. Any mistake could wake the sleeping soldiers of the British Army. Any mistake could put others at risk. And he hesitated for sure. But then he decided to shield the flame with his hands, to strike the match, to light the wick, and to light another one. And those small flames flickered in a cold night. And the story says that a wind moved, and the flames sort of trembled, but they didn't go out. And Israel whispered the blessing, barely louder than a breath. Bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. Blessed are you, source of life, who performed miracles for our ancestors in their days, in the days of old, and also bazman hazeh in this season. And nothing around him changed. The night was still cold. The war was still coming. The future was still uncertain. And yet something had changed in him. Celebrating Hanukkah at the dawn of America. Then a shadow, legend tells us, a shadow fell across the light. What are you doing? The voice said sharply. Israel looked up, his heart racing, and standing there was General George Washington. And Israel rose slowly, carefully, not to make a sound. I'm not a spy, he whispered. I'm a Jew. And tonight is a Jewish holiday. We light the candles to remember a time when our people fought for freedom, when they were outnumbered, when nothing was certain. And Washington looked down at the candles and the flames flickered against the wind. What happened, he asked. And Israel paused. Well, they lit anyway. Even when they didn't know how the story would end, they chose to light the menorah. And General Washington stood there for a long moment saying nothing. And then he nodded and walked back into darkness between the tents. And the legend goes on to say that years later, after the war, Israel Solomon never forgot that night. Not because it guaranteed victory, not because it proved anything, but because a small, private Jewish act had been seen by who would become America's first president. Because light, kindled quietly and without certainty, had reached farther than he could ever have imagined. And that's why this story has lasted and the Hanukkah story has lasted, because Hanukkah does not promise us outcomes. It does not promise us safety or success or certainty. It tells us something older and more demanding, that even in the cold, even in the dark, even when resources are thin and fear is real, that we choose to light, that we choose to fight for freedom. And sometimes the miracle is not what happens next. The miracle is that we strike the match in the first place. On this Hanukkah, in this year, may we use the light of our own lives and choose to kindle a flame that dispels the darkness and dispels the cold. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will. Amen.